Today, the 12th of October 2021, the International Court of Justice, the ICJ, delivered its decision in the maritime delimitation in the Indian Ocean case, Somalia-Kenya. While Kenya is not surprised by the decision, it is profoundly concerned by the import of the decision and its implications for the Horn of Africa region and international law generally. At the very onset, Kenya wishes to indicate that it rejects in totality and does not recognize the findings in the decision. The decision embodies a perpetuation of the ICJ's jurisdictional overreach and raises a fundamental question on the respect of the sovereignty and consent of states to international judicial processes, and international tribunals have jurisdiction only to the extent of the consent by a state. Kenya, as an avid supporter of the rule of law, accepted the court's jurisdiction through a declaration in 1965 with an objectively clear outline of certain excluded matters. At the time, Kenya never imagined that the ICJ would violate the declaration to the extent of imposing its mandate over expressly excluded matters. It is an unfortunate development over the last decade, a trend that has emerged of some supposedly international organizations being deployed as political tools against certain countries. Sadly, this has infected the ICJ, leading it to impose jurisdiction on a dispute that it has neither jurisdiction nor competence. In addition, the court did not use or did not permit the use, let alone the exhaustion, of regional dispute resolution mechanisms, despite the existence of a robust African Union legal framework on border issues and dispute settlement. Even with these flaws, Kenya participated in the initial proceedings out of its traditional respect for the rule of law, if only to make its case that the court had neither jurisdiction nor competence over the dispute. However, the court decided, inexplicable decision, delivered on the 2nd of February 2017, that it would hear and determine the dispute despite the founded objections, and this decision was clearly erroneous. Faced by the above substantive and a persistent procedural unfairness from a biased bench and the denial of the right to a fair hearing, Kenya was forced to withdraw its participation in the public hearings on the 14th of March 2021. In fact, Kenya doubts that any state would have appeared at all in a case such as this. Further, based on the ICJ's improprieties and to avert the risk of another imposed jurisdiction, Kenya, on the 24th of September 2021, withdrew its recognition of the compulsory jurisdiction of the ICJ and will only reconsider this withdrawal when pragmatic reforms are instituted in the administration of international justice. Kenya therefore calls on the international community to create an enabling environment for the pursuit of a negotiated settlement. Kenya and Somalia are neighboring states with a common border and communities with shared social, cultural, and religious practices. This decision is, in the circumstances, a zero-sum game, which will only strain the relations between our two countries. It will also reverse the social, political, and economic gains and potentially aggravate the peace and security situation in the fragile Horn of Africa region. Kenya, like other independent countries, possesses a determined geographical territory. As a devoted member of the United Nations Security Council, as well as the African Union's Peace and Security Council, we call upon the rest of the family of nations to appreciate and respect our inherent right to protect by all available means our territory. Nonetheless, Kenya remains committed to a diplomatic solution to the current impasse. And in this regard, Kenya is a key proponent of respect for the principle of subsidiarity as a catalyst for the African solutions for African problems, will resolve this matter through institutions of the African Union, such as the African Union Border Program and its peace and security architecture, in addition to other bilateral arrangements. So, fellow Kenyans, as your president, I want to assure you of my commitment to solve this issue amicably and urge you all to remain calm as we continue to be fully seized of this matter. Thank you. But I would also want to, in particular, thank CCA for the cooperation that we have had with you over the years, the commitment that you have continued to show to Africa in terms of strengthening the ties between our various private sectors, but also to improve trade and investment between the US, Africa, and Kenya in particular. So through you, Flory, thank you to you and to your organization for the incredible support that you have been in trying to unlock many doors, while at the same time bringing our various investors together. I believe that this, and as we have heard from across the room, a good number of SMEs who either are already partnering or working in Kenya, and you will form the basis of what I believe will be a prosperous future for our two countries, but also an opportunity to create investment where it matters. And investment matters when it changes lives. SMEs change lives. They create jobs. They create opportunity. They create linkages that are long-lasting. And therefore, I really look forward in the years to come to see, as many speakers who have spoken before me have said, that shall be born out of this, and mine is to once again reiterate what I always say when we get together, of our commitment as a country, as a people, and as a government to continue to do that which we can to support you to succeed, because if you succeed, the country succeeds, government succeeds, the people succeed, and we are all moving forward cleanly and clearly together. Kenya is a country where people always wonder, where does the resilience of our economy come from? A country where, despite the myriad of shocks that have occasioned over the years, why does Kenya always prove to be so resilient? And that resilience comes from our small and medium enterprises. That resilience comes from what you will refer to as the informal sector. That resilience comes from what many would term in Kenya, jua kali. But ultimately, it is that sector that forms the basis of our resilience. It is that sector that actually is the largest single employer in our country. And so when we're here today, joining you in witnessing this signing, again, we're witnessing a signing where we're partnering again with another country who has also grown and whose backbone is also the small and medium enterprises. We all talk of the big corporations, the Googles and the Amazons and all these IBMs and other big players. But the strength and the resilience of the American economy is also equally based on small and medium enterprises. So bringing this partnership together for these two countries, for these two sectors to partner and to be able to grow together, I believe is a wonderful thing, and I want to congratulate you all for having achieved that today. Because even as we look into the future, a future where we are all focused on recovery, it will be this sector that will once again be the foundation of the post-COVID world and the recovery that we all seek to see in the months and years ahead of us. We are in the Security Council giving voice to this plan. Our actions are guided by enabling Africa's voice and interests to be a primary actor in solving our security challenges, not just for Africa's sake, but for the sake of our African diaspora and indeed the global South. In early September of this year, I hosted the first Africa CARICOM Summit. This historic meeting reflected the consciousness of the global Africa. We made commitments to work together for the benefit of our people and our world. Indeed, just last Sunday, I flew to New York from Barbados, where I handed over the chairing of the UN Conference on Trade and Development to the Prime Minister of Barbados. On the sidelines of that meeting, I met leaders from the Caribbean, and we all expressed deep concern about the challenges that Haiti is facing. And we all believe that we need to do more than empathize from a distance. Haiti happens to be one of the situations in the Security Council whose multiple crises concern Kenya the most. As part of the Caribbean, Haiti is part of the African Union's 6th region. We are joined by bonds of ancestry and a cultural heritage. So we all feel that it is our duty to demonstrate our solidarity in the same way we did early in the year by enabling global vaccine procurement for the Caribbean countries in ways that were unimaginable in pre-COVID times. Through the African state-driven AU Africa Vaccine Acquisition Trust, we have been able to offer Caribbean countries the benefit of Africa's economies of scale in pricing and procurement. Motivated by the same consciousness of a global Africa, I look forward to soon facilitating a meeting that will assemble Haiti, Africa, CARICOM, and other global partners to demonstrate practical solidarity for the people of Haiti in line with their own priorities. As we will start later this week on the 15th with the A3+1 hosting an area formula meeting on Haiti that will seek Pan-African solutions and pathways to support national dialogue and reconciliation. And even as we begin, we want to demonstrate through our actions that outstretched hand of global Africa. And to this end, my administration is crafting a training and capacity building program for Haiti. And we will commit to offering 2,000 places for Haitians in our military, police, nursing, teaching, government administration, and criminal justice training institutions. We will seek partners to help co-finance these opportunities. Haitians clearly need more than emergency and humanitarian assistance. They need sustainable development assistance in order for them to come out of their current problems. I also urge the Security Council to take steps to strengthen the mandate of the United Nations Integrated Office in Haiti so that it is fit for purpose. Indeed, yesterday in my meeting with the Secretary General, I urged him to take every available step to escalate the development support to Haiti. I hope what I have tried to outline in these few minutes is a new way of working together globally and arguing that embracing, thinking, and consciousness of global Africa can make a difference in facing today's challenges wherever they may occur. And that is why I urge you to reposition Africa and its diaspora in your imaginations if we are truly to bring a new multilateralism to life. Unity on the national and global level is what will enable us to bring peace and prosperity in the world. This is what has inspired my promotion of the idea of the global Africa, an idea whose time I truly believe has come. Antonio Guterres, in his September report on our common agenda, observed, and I quote, that humanity faces a stark and urgent choice, and that was breakdown or breakthrough. The Secretary General regretted the present instability of multilateral institutions to deliver bold solutions to the COVID-19 pandemic, to issues related to climate change, sustainable development, and protracted conflicts across the globe. The ongoing failure to deliver COVID-19 vaccines to the global population is the latest and most prominent evidence of the weakness of our existing multilateralism. Even faced with a profound common threat, old hierarchies have re-established themselves. The zero-sum thinking fails to appreciate the simple fact that for any of us to be safe, all of us have to be safe. And this is a problem for our globe. If we continue to display the same attitude in our pursuit to overcoming the effects of climate change and biodiversity loss, the results will undoubtedly be disastrous. From where we sit, we need a new global multilateralism that puts global Africa at its heart, and if we are to respond adequately to the Secretary General's call for meaningful change, we need to do so urgently. Many of the actions that are currently powering Kenya's foreign policy in the last few years have reflected our desire as a country to lead in re-energizing and redirecting multilateralism and ensuring that Africa takes its place not merely as a recipient of aid, but as a critical actor in delivering solutions to our world. Africa, ladies and gentlemen, is global. There are almost 2 billion people of African descent in the world. They live on multiple continents, and unfortunately, for reasons of history, often share a similar experience of exclusion from the fruits of global industry, trade, and investment. We have the youngest population in the world, and one way or another, this population will travel. It will travel to all corners of the world, and this travel will either be a desperate search for employment and safety, or as a financially able tourist seeking to enjoy the world's attractions. Today, the mobile phone in each of our pockets, the electric car that we say is the future, and rechargeable batteries, the jewelries that we wear, and so many other important products could not be made except for Africa's resources. Today, most developed economies in manufacturing, medical technology, and energy development need Africa's resources as a core component of their economic production. Let me clarify just why it is so important for the world to wake up and listen to Africa and rebuild multilateralism to be inclusive, fair, but most importantly, consistent. The challenge of the modern African experience has existed for over 500 centuries. It was born of the experience of slavery and colonialism and its residual effects in our families, communities, and in most of our countries. However, the idea of the global Africa that I wish to propose today is one that we need to build. It will reconnect and re-engage with African peoples wherever they are on our planet, and indeed also connect with all people of goodwill in a common enterprise of uplift, dignity, and independence. Global Africa embraces the philosophical ideals of what we call negritude Harambe, Ujamaa, Ubuntu, and politically, it is the abolitionist movement, the Pan-African Congress, the anti-colonial and civil rights movement, and the African Renaissance. Pan-Africanist advocates of these ideas and movements have been urging for change in global relations for over a century. When they have not been heeded, humanity in one way or another has suffered. At the turn of the 20th century, they warned about the entrenching of racist thinking and the fake science that powered it. They argued it degraded humanity and created systems of oppression and exploitation that were intolerable. They identified the lack of freedom and equity between peoples as a danger to the world. Unfortunately, too few paid heed to them. As a result, fascism rose unimpeded until it reached its most radical and violent expression in Nazism and the explosion of the Second World War, where tens of millions were killed in war, including the unfortunate tragedy of the Holocaust. When the Pan-Africanists next warned that decolonization needed to be genuinely free, the colonies were not paid the attention that they deserved. Today, the world continues to live with a tragic legacy of that incomplete decolonization. The Security Council today, as a result, spends the majority of its time discussing conflicts in Africa. Often, if not in every instance, one of the root causes of such conflicts is how decolonization was poorly undertaken over half a century ago. So today's Pan-Africanists, of which I am proud to call myself one, are calling for multilateralism to urgently respond adequately to the issues of today, to address itself to climate change, biodiversity loss, as well as the multiple protracted security challenges that we face. As I said, we need a new multilateralism with global Africa at its heart. It will reject discrimination and racism as part of our way of doing business. The problems that we face today are far too serious, our future far too important to leave out any country, no matter its size, to leave out any race, and for that matter, to leave out any gender. We all need to have a stake in the solutions that humanity is yearning for today. So I propose that we embrace this new understanding and build on it. And next month at COP26 being one such forum. In Glasgow, we are supposed to negotiate the scale of commitments and targets to set. What should power these negotiations, I believe, is the ambition to provide Africa and the broader developing world with a viable path to rapid industrialization as part of our global journey to net zero. The failure to do so is too grim to contemplate. Today's political and economic refugee flows across our borders will be tiny by comparison to what will happen if we fail to act today. Seizing this moment, on the other hand, will have major benefits for all of humanity. Take, for instance, the green industrial park that Kenya is developing on the outskirts of a town called Naivasha, where we have over 10,000 acres to house manufacturing concerns that will almost entirely be powered by green geothermal energy. They will be connected to an efficient port by railway infrastructure. And companies that take advantage of the opportunity will be making an important contribution, not only to the development of our country, but also to their regulatory and ethical drive to achieve net zero. Kenyans will benefit from decent employment and rising prosperity. And our continent, and indeed the entire global South, are filled with such opportunities. As many of the workers in the wealthiest economies age, their retirement needs require higher returns in order for developed countries to be able to afford them. Africa, its young population, and its need to develop is a logical investment choice to earn these returns. That will happen when there is a wider appreciation by the wealthiest that Africa is not a zone for unjust exploitation, but instead it is a potential engine for immense mutual benefit to all its investors. The new multilateralism will need to embrace such enlightened self-interest rather than the failed approaches of past thinking of aid as a one-sided benefit. The key message I wish to deliver today is that poor management of diversity is leading to grave threats to international peace and security. Inequality within and between states is too often the result of exclusion on the basis of identity. That exclusion is often institutionalized in governance and economic relations at the national and the global level, and it manifests in stereotyping and bigotry. It leads to, amongst other things, a lack of employment or livelihood opportunities to billions of people purely based on their identities. Communities and countries being unable to benefit from their natural resource. It leads to climate injustice and an unfair trading system. The result is a profound sense of grievance and bitterness that populists and demagogues can easily exploit. This is so especially when such feelings and narratives are carried by social media and its spreading of misinformation, disinformation, and narratives that are often laced with incitement and extremist tendencies. It leads to trust in institutions deteriorating and state legitimacy weakening. It is fodder for terrorism, insurgencies, the rise of xenophobia, hate speech, divisive tribalism, as well as racism. An escalation of a social or political conflict finds the state much less able to prevent or mitigate the crisis. It is worth emphasizing that rather than serving to legitimize the state, in this environment of grievance based on identity, elections sometimes only further the divides. They become a zero-sum game in which the winner-take-all contests that appear to pit racial, ethnic, or religious identities against each other. Images of desperate men and women on sinking rafts trying to migrate in pursuit of economic opportunity have today become commonplace. They point to an international political and economic system that is inadequate for the challenges of today and definitely not adequate to meet our SDGs. The inability of their countries to offer them viable opportunities is often the result of a one-size-fits-all prescription and templates by powerful global institutions. These fail to take into account the diversity and different needs of states as well as different contexts. They therefore perpetuate inequality and exclusion. Vaccine nationalism, travel bans and red listings further inflame the divisions between the rich and the poor states. These are the manifestations of the inability to deal with a diverse world. And in this regard, I want to offer a few recommendations that I consider essential in the management of diversity that supports state building and sustainable peace. First, in all states, whether democratic or not, we should place safety rails on political competition. This can be achieved by incentivizing a political culture that does not endanger national cohesion, by exploiting identity to divide and create enmity between citizens. Second, we need to undertake thorough reviews of our international institutions to consider whether they are fit for purpose in building a more inclusive world and managing diversity better, particularly in times of crisis such as the COVID-19 pandemic. Third, we need to accelerate Security Council reform. The membership of the Council lacks transparency and inclusion. And fourth, COP26 in Glasgow next month will be an opportunity to ensure that climate change adaptation commitments are directed to accelerating development, investment, and job creation, particularly in the developing world. Climate adaptation must offer a clear and visible path to a green industrialization for Africa and indeed for the global South. Fifth, states should be offered every assistance to develop internal mechanisms for national dialogue and reconciliation. They should establish early warning systems to avert conflicts as well as human suffering. Sixth, the UN, regional organizations, as well as development partners should focus on state capacity building that delivers competence as opposed to the exclusive focus on good governance as a set of normative standards. Seventh, the United Nations and its peace-building initiatives should include diversity management as a component of peace-building and state stabilization. Eighth, we should initiate a collaborative approach between states, the UN system, and social media companies to combat hate speech and incitement. This can include an agreed global code of conduct by companies and the development of early warning tools to detect escalation trends and to facilitate preemptive measures. I look forward to the Security Council and the UN overall embracing some of these insights and recommendations that I have made today. I thank you all for your attention.